May 3rd, 2007 began like any other warm evening in the quiet seaside town of Praia da Luz, Portugal. The air was calm, the resort streets were still, and families staying at the Ocean Club apartments moved through their holiday routines without a single thought that this night would soon become one of the most analysed, debated, and haunting evenings in modern true crime history. A 3-year-old girl named Madeleine McCann was asleep in a small ground-floor apartment with her twin siblings. Her parents, Kate and Jerry McCann, were about 55 metres away, having dinner with friends at a nearby tapas restaurant. They believed they had created a careful system, a rotation, a method. Every 15 to 20 minutes, someone from the table would walk back to the apartments to check on the sleeping children. It felt responsible and organised, safe. By 10 p.m, that belief would collapse into chaos. The McCanns were vacationing with a group of friends, later known in media reports as the Tapas 7. All of them had young children. All of them followed the same nighttime pattern. The adults dined together. The children slept. The checks were routine, predictable, almost mechanical. It was a system that had worked for several nights before May 3rd, but predictability is something predators understand better than anyone. Dinner began around 8:30 p.m. The group chatted casually, unaware that this would be the last normal conversation many of them would ever have, without the shadow of suspicion hanging over it. At 9:05 p.m, Jerry McCann left the table to check on his children. He entered the apartment quietly. The room was dim. Madeleine and the twins were asleep, though nothing unusual. He returned to the restaurant. Around 9:15 p.m, one of their friends, Jane Tanner, walked past the apartment complex. She noticed a man walking away from the direction of the McCann's apartment, carrying what appeared to be a child wrapped in light-coloured pyjamas. The child's head rested on the man's shoulder, arms hanging loosely as if asleep. Jane thought little of it at the time. It was a holiday resort. Parents carried children to bed all the time. She did not yet know she may have witnessed the most important moment of the entire case. At 10 p.m, Kate McCann left the table for her turn to check on the children. As she approached the apartment, nothing seemed unusual. The door was closed. The lights inside were off. She walked into the room, expecting to see the 3 small shapes in their beds. Instead, she saw something that made her stop cold. The window was open. The shutters were raised. The curtains moved slightly in the night breeze. Madeleine's bed was empty. The twins were still asleep. Kate ran back to the restaurant, screaming words that would echo around the world for years. "They've taken her!" Within minutes, the calm of the resort turned into confusion and panic. Staff, guests, and friends began searching frantically. Police were called. People ran through the streets shouting her name. Flashlights cut through the darkness as dozens of strangers joined the search. But in the urgency and emotion, something crucial happened. The apartment was not preserved as a crime scene. Friends, staff, police, and volunteers moved in and out. People touched surfaces, walked across floors, opened doors. And time passed before the space was properly secured, and in any potential abduction, the first hours are everything. Those hours slipped away. As Portuguese police began their investigation, questions started to pile up almost immediately. There were no signs of forced entry. The door showed no damage. The window, which Kate said had been forced open, later became a point of contention. Investigators debated whether it had truly been tampered with from outside. If someone had entered, how had they done it so cleanly? Why were the twins still asleep? And why had no one heard anything? By morning, the story had reached international news. A beautiful blonde 3-year-old missing from a holiday resort. Her picture was everywhere. The case spread across Europe within hours, then across the world. Politicians spoke about it. Celebrities offered support. Media descended on Praia da Luz in overwhelming numbers. And with that attention came pressure. Enormous pressure. The Portuguese investigation, now under a global spotlight, moved quickly but not always carefully. Witness statements were taken, timelines were reconstructed, resort staff were interviewed, tourists were questioned, sketches were drawn, suspects were considered.
Madeleine is a beautiful, caring little girl.
Famous for all the wrong reasons.
If you have Madeleine, let her come home.
Maddie McCann's face has haunted the world for 15 years.
It's incredibly sad, and they have to live with that.
On 60 Minutes,
there's only one suspect in the Madeleine case.
the police say they know who snatched her.
There was a match with the phone number of Christian B.
They have the monster locked up.
Absolutely vile, horrible man. He seeks out children.
So why won't they charge him with the crime?
Christian B is the murderer.
It's unthinkable.
We've no idea how he killed her. This is where the inconsistency is.
But have investigators got it all wrong?
If he's got a piece of evidence, if he's got that silver bullet, then get on and charge him.
Sunday.
Jane Tanner's sighting became a focal point. The image of a man carrying a sleeping child through the streets of Praia da Luz at 9:15 p.m. suddenly looked terrifying. Composite sketches were released. Appeals went out across Europe. Was this the abductor? But as the investigation widened, it took a turn that shocked the public. Attention shifted toward the parents. Specialist sniffer dogs from the UK were brought in months later, and these dogs were trained to detect the scent of cadavers and blood invisible to the human eye. They alerted in several places inside the McCann's apartment, behind a sofa, near Madeleine's bed, on some of Kate's clothing, and most controversially, in the rental car the McCanns had hired nearly a month after Madeleine disappeared. This discovery ignited a firestorm. The theory that Madeleine had died in the apartment and that her parents had staged an abduction suddenly dominated headlines. Portuguese police formally named Kate and Jerry McCann as arguidos, official suspects. The world began to split in two. Some people saw grieving parents under unimaginable stress. Others saw calculated individuals hiding a terrible secret. Every interview they gave was dissected frame by frame. Their expressions were analysed, their body language scrutinised, the way they spoke, the way they stood, the way they cried. The case transformed from a missing child investigation into a psychological battlefield in the court of public opinion. The McCanns insisted they were innocent. They cooperated with investigators. They hired legal teams. They fought back against what they called a misguided investigation.
Did you kill your daughter?
No, that's an emphatic no. I mean, the ludicrous thing is what's been purported from Portugal is that Madeleine died in the apartment by an accident and we hid her body. Well, when did she have the accident and died? Because the only time she was left unattended was when we were at dinner. So if she died then, how could we have disposed or hidden her body, when there was an immediate threat? It's just nonsense. So, and if she died when we were in the apartment or fell and did something, why would we cover that up?
And that gets even more ludicrous, that we've obviously hidden her somewhere incredibly well, where nobody's found her.
Incredibly
and we hid her
well.
so well that we then decided we'd move her in the car, which we hired weeks later. And, it's just ridiculous.
Eventually, the official suspect status was lifted. No charges were filed. But the damage to public perception was done. Meanwhile, sightings of Madeleine flooded in from across Europe, in Spain, in Morocco, in Belgium. Each report sparked hope, then faded into disappointment. Photographs of children resembling Madeleine circulated widely. None were her. Years passed, but the questions refused to fade. Why was the apartment so accessible? And the McCann's unit was on the ground floor, facing the street, with easy access for anyone passing by. Why had the group felt comfortable leaving children unattended night after night? Had someone been watching, observing the routine, learning the timing? Investigators began to consider the possibility that this was not a random act but a planned one. Someone who knew children were left alone. Someone who understood exactly when adults would be absent. A crime of opportunity requires luck. A planned abduction requires patience. The idea that someone had studied the family's pattern in the days leading up to May 3rd became one of the most chilling possibilities. Then, more than a decade later, the case shifted again. In 2020, German authorities announced a new suspect, a man named Christian Bruckner, a convicted criminal with a history of sexual offences against children, a drifter who had lived in Praia da Luz at the time Madeleine vanished. Phone records placed him in the area that night. For the first time, investigators said publicly they believed Madeleine was dead. But even this development brought no closure. No body was found, no confession made, no definitive evidence presented to the public. Bruckner denied involvement. The world watched once again as hope and uncertainty tangled together. And through it all, the same haunting questions lingered. If this was an abduction, how was it carried out so silently? If it was staged, where was the proof? Why did the timeline contain so many small gaps and contradictions? Why did witness statements evolve over time? Why did the investigation suffer from early missteps that could never be undone? The case of Madeleine McCann became a study not just in disappearance, but in how investigations, media pressure, public opinion, and human psychology can collide in ways that blur truth and theory. For years, people have returned to the same moment between 9:15 and 10 p.m. A narrow window of time where everything changed. A man carrying a child, a mother opening a door, a window open to the night. Some believe the answer lies in that sighting. Others believe it lies inside the apartment itself. Some think the truth has already been uncovered quietly behind the scenes. Others believe it remains buried in the chaos of early mistakes. What makes this case so haunting is not that we know nothing, it is that we know too much that doesn't fit together. A small seaside town, a holiday routine, a child vanishing without a trace, parents caught between sympathy and suspicion, investigators racing against time while under global scrutiny, a suspect appearing 13 years later without the evidence to end the story. The disappearance of Madeleine McCann has lasted longer than her entire life had lasted before she vanished. And somewhere in the overlapping timelines, witness accounts, forensic debates, and human error, the truth waits quietly, unseen, unconfirmed, but still present. If this investigation gripped you, like this video, subscribe to You the Detective, and share it with someone who loves unravelling mysteries. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe this was a carefully planned abduction, or is there another explanation hidden in the details?